Heading into the weekend, the world let out a collective sigh of relief. For over a month, the threat of a wider regional war in the Middle East had kept everyone on edge, but suddenly the tension seemed to be evaporating. This chart tracks the global price of crude oil, and it tells the story of that weekend optimism perfectly. Markets hate uncertainty, and yet prices were sliding predictably downward, settling back toward an $80 a barrel baseline. Peace was quite literally being priced in. The optimism was grounded in active diplomacy. An American delegation, led by J.D. Vance's team, was already in the air, flying straight to Islamabad to sit down for historic peace talks with Iran. Between the cooling oil markets and high-level officials flying out to negotiate, a long-term ceasefire appeared to be a foregone conclusion. That diplomatic progress shattered entirely under the cover of darkness in the Gulf of Oman. Without warning, the peaceful setup was derailed by a sudden, violent interception at sea. The United States Navy intercepted an Iranian-flagged cargo ship named the Tosca. American forces disabled the vessel using kinetic warning shots before targeting the engine room directly to ensure the ship could not escape. From there, U.S. naval commandos physically boarded the crippled ship. In a matter of minutes, the Tosca, its crew, and its entire cargo were seized and brought under total American control. This chart shows the immediate market reaction. The moment news of the seizure broke, that peaceful $80 baseline vanished, and the price of crude oil spiked violently upward, blowing right past $95 a barrel. Executing a hostile military boarding while simultaneously flying delegates to a peace table introduces a massive paradox. It places both nations deep in the gray zone, a modern theater of conflict that is neither official peace nor declared war. To understand why a single cargo ship causes such a massive geopolitical rupture, we must look at the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. This rigid framework governs exactly what nations can and cannot do in international waters. Under UNCLOS, cutting off a nation's shipping access is legal only if formal war is publicly declared and applied without discrimination. But the U.S. argues they're enforcing a targeted blockade, claiming the Tosca was breaching sanctions, potentially carrying illicit goods. Iran's response is rooted in that lack of a formal war declaration. Because the U.S. hasn't declared war, Iran views the interception as a severe violation of their sovereign right, labeling the act outright piracy. This is the intentional ambiguity of the gray zone. With no official war on the books, the legality of seizing ships becomes impossibly blurred. International law breaks down, leaving both sides to write their own rules. Because Iran refuses to recognize the American blockade, they've developed a massive economic counter-strategy to bypass it: shadow fleets. Oil exports are the backbone of the Iranian economy. To keep that money flowing, Iran uses unflagged vessels for covert ship-to-ship transfers, making it difficult for American forces to track the cargo's origin. But the retaliation isn't limited to economic evasion. In response to the ship seizure, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard immediately escalated to military reprisal. Within hours, they launched swarms of explosive drones directly at American warships stationed in the region. These drones are the perfect asymmetric tool. They cost very little to manufacture, but when launched in massive synchronized clusters, they can overwhelm traditional air defense systems through sheer volume. Shadow fleets and drone swarms are the ultimate gray zone weapons. They allow nations to inflict massive damage while avoiding the legal tripwire of a formal declaration of war. The immediate casualty of this escalation was the very diplomacy that offered so much hope days prior. In direct response to the seizure of the Tosca, Iran entirely rejected the second round of peace talks in Pakistan. Their ultimate ultimatum is now clear. No Iranian delegates will approach the negotiating table until the United States military completely lifts its undeclared blockade. This leaves the international community in a precarious position. The conflict has moved away from proxy skirmishes and into direct friction between sovereign navies. The macroeconomic consequences of that friction are immediate. The threat of regional instability sends maritime shipping insurance costs skyrocketing, which disrupts global freight rates and bottlenecks the supply chain. For energy-dependent nations like India, a destabilized Strait of Hormuz directly threatens national infrastructure, as every cent added to a barrel of oil impacts the bottom line of their domestic economy. The gray zone was intended to keep regional tensions simmering safely below the threshold of total military mobilization. However, the current strategy of pursuing peace while simultaneously seizing assets creates a friction that the global economy cannot absorb. A single miscalculation at sea today risks a cascading financial collapse.